everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Northwest Craftsman. Today, I'm building a barn because our horse needs a dry place to be, and we need a place to store hay. Let's get going. Okay, so a quick pause to show you guys what I'm doing. What you saw us do at the very beginning in setting up the rebar was trying to get the spots marked on the four corners as close as we could to square. And then what I did is basically 3 feet out on either side except where this post is, because we wanted it to line up with the edge. We ran the other pieces of rebar and made sure that they were straight in line with the corners that we had placed, because then what that allows us to do, this corner's a better example, so when you've got this rebar, you get a crossing point here in the middle. And originally, when we spray painted the ground, we painted right over these X's, but because of how rocky the soil is, we couldn't always hit it basically dead on. So like on this one, we're a little bit further off. But in this case, that's actually fine because I'm going to be placing my anchors over here on this side. So the benefit of doing this is that you can basically take the strings off and put them back on and mark where you need to be putting your holes. And as long as the rebar stays in place, you can always go back and mark theoretically where things are supposed to go. So what I'm going to be doing now is for any of the holes that are misaligned enough, I'm going to go ahead and clean out the holes or move the holes a little bit so that I have the ability to get the full depth, width, and placement that I want on all of these, so that when I go to place my anchors, all my anchors are in the right spot. Because if I can get a really square building here at the bottom, the goal is that I can get a really square building and come up, which just means a lot less improvisation as we go through the rest of the project. Come to inspect the work, James? Yeah. So here's what it looks like with everything set up the next day. I was working a little bit into the night because I didn't have enough concrete for that hole, because even though I got extra bags, which always get extra bags, but even though I had extra bags, I didn't have enough because the hole still ended up being bigger than I anticipated. So got them all finished, and then I used the strings, and basically as I put them in, I put them an inch off of each side. Yeah. I put them like an inch off of each side so that I had enough space for my panels when the sheet metal goes up. We'll see how well that works, because it's supposed to get it down to 12 feet to the outside. And because I'm doing residential girts on this with 2x4s, it means I've got an inch and a half for each one of those on either side. So we'll see how close that gets to being there. And then I'm also going to do one final measurement to see how square I actually got it. But next up, once I got these guys plumb, you just need to get them mostly plumb because there's a little bit of flex in the 4x4s when you put them up. But got them mostly plumb all the way through. And now we're going to go ahead and start putting the framing up. And just in case you guys were wondering what I was doing with these, effectively I would fill basically the entire hole with concrete, and then I would use the forms to make little tiny piers for the last 6 inches. So I've got 3 to 5 inches below the ground and then a little bit of a pier above the ground so that it looks nice on the top, or looks nicer on the top than just a mound of concrete all the way around. So dirt will eventually fill in around this, or I'll fill dirt in around this. So I should just get a whole bunch of these little circular piers for each one of these, and then these just raise it up off the ground so that I'm less likely to rot on my posts. Now, one day later, coming back to this now, all of these should be well set in concrete, and what I'm going to do is, this is the tallest one that I have, and I need to figure out how much drop I have to the rest of these to make sure that when I'm buying 4x4s, I get 4x4s that are long enough that I can make sure they match up here at the top, even though they start at a different place. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my laser level over here, and I'm basically going to beam it out, figure out what my measurement is to this post, and then look at the delta between each one of the other ones and this one so that I know how much longer any of these need to be than this one. Alrighty, there we go. Headers are up on both sides. You'll notice that to keep everything stable, I ran the 2x4s all the way across the bottom, kind of teed up to start with. For more stability on this side, I could have done the same thing. The other thing is, if you only have one set of hands like I do, stair stepping your way up with some clamps seem to be a really helpful trick. But the best solution is just get a partner to work with, both on ladders, so that you guys can bring it up at the same time, tack it in. It'll go faster, it'll be safer, everything's better that way. Next up, I'm gonna go ahead and string some girts just to try and keep this building a little bit more locked in. Well, getting my template rafters set up was an absolute pain in the butt. I highly recommend, and I got this advice from somebody else, but I highly recommend getting one extra board so that you can go through and futz and finagle and make sure that you're getting it up there right, because then now that this is set and I've got my angles cut at the ends correctly for my fascia, I've got my bird's mouths cut correctly on both sides, now I can use that as my template so that theoretically through the rest of this stack I don't make any of those extra measurement mistakes, because I can just cut exactly what I have here. I won't go too deeply into it here because there's a lot of really great videos online for it, but effectively what a bird's mouth does is allows you to rest on the surface, and this is actually one that I screwed up. It should be the other direction, but effectively this flat surface will rest on top of your rafters. So it'll be something like this, so that you get that downward load coming into your wall as opposed to just sitting on the corner, which would look more like, where is it? Like this if the rafter was going to be sitting there. If you don't have yourself one of these speed squares, this is really, really handy for setting them up. They've got all the markings you need. Again, I don't have, or I won't necessarily post a method for using this, but I will put a video in the description so that you guys can go look this up. Again, there's tons of really great resources for it, but this is a really easy tool on how to do that. And then I take no credit for this whatsoever, but I tested the fit on this side to make that first rafter. And then just to check to see how square my building was all the way around, I checked it on this side to make sure that the gap was the same there. And much to my surprise, it fit perfectly. I can say that I was honestly not expecting that in any way, shape, or form. That is a culmination of a massive amount of luck, a little bit of harebrained planning, and some of this coming together smoothly. But if you're building a square and if it turns out nicely, it's going to be the same for this rafter as it is for this rafter, which means that for the entirety of the building, I can go ahead and make that rafter and we should be good to go. I hope and pray you guys have that kind of culmination of the work that you put together, because that makes your life a whole heck of a lot more easy. Okay, so here I wanted to take a quick break and show you guys some of the methodology that I'm using. So on this right-hand side over here, I overlapped it so that when I go from this side all the way over to that side with this overhang, I get an even number of sheet metal sheets. We'll see how closely I ended up hitting it, but I wanted to try not to have to trim off anything if I could. And then the reason I've got these staggered back and forth like this is because from here forward, I should be able to use whole pieces working all the way up, and the stagger continues. And the reason I wanted this stagger is so that in this break area right here where I'm not going to be securing the boards to each other, there's not a whole line of them coming down one of the rafters where there's that weak spot. So it should buffer it back and forth, and I'll need to cut these guys down to meet the halfway point so that it looks more like this. But now I should be able to use whole sticks all the way down to finish it off, and then I'll just need to trim up the ends to this when this stagger meets me at the other side. Okie dokie, and with all of those up, I now come to the end and I've got all of these offset. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure all the way from that side down to here to get my right measurement. It should be right at about the 21.5 inches that I had measured for the other side, but measure an even increment of 3 feet from that side to this side, mark all of these, cut them off so that I've got a nice even roof line. Next, I need to add a piece of trim all the way across the top on my headers so that I can actually mount the sheet metal up to the top, because my girts stick out by 1.5 inches, so I need to match that up here at the top. At the same time, I'm going to mount a 2x6 to my door so that my door has a place to stick out away from the wall where all my girts are. Okay, so I've got everything mounted up for the doors. I've got the blocking around the edges to make everything nice and even on the outside. My building inspector even came by to make sure that I was both meeting OSHA standards and building inspection this morning. But now that I'm done with that, now I need to add bird blocking to just this side of it, because that side's going to be wide open to the outside, so bird blocking doesn't matter. But on this side, we're going to go ahead and bird block everything in so that theoretically this side can stand a little bit more animal time. Okay, so I wasn't able to get all of this on time lapse just because it started raining and I had to go away and all sorts of miscellaneous things, but I wanted to walk you guys through what I did. So I ended up putting all of the boards that I need here for mounting the doorway up, and you can see that it's just two 2x6s basically laminated onto this header right here. That will stand it off of the wall so that when I go to put in the sheet metal right here, the door will run in front of the sheet metal. I've got these boards that run all the way along the top, all the way around, so that when I mount my sheet metal up, because my girts are on the outside of these posts, I can run all the way up and attach to the top. And then I did bird blocking all the way around on the end here, and I did the big bird blocking in the middle, but because I have these 2x3s running across the top, I also put bird blocking in up there, so that when I go to put the sheet metal in on top of it, I don't get any big gaps here on the ends. This side doesn't matter as much. Well, I guess it does because I still have the opening, but I don't get any big gaps on the front and the bottom. And then I added my fascia board here to the short side of the barn. I'm not going to do it on the tall side because I'm not hanging a gutter on that side, and I wanted to make sure that I had all my flexibility on here to mount my gutter in on this side, and I can always add it later if I want to because it's going to be exposed. But I'm going to put, I got the fascia board up here, and then here's what it looks like on top. So here you can see the bird blocking running around the perimeter that goes right in here, comes all the way up along the edges, and then goes across the top there as well. I'm only doing this portion right here because this is where we are going to store all of the hay, and we wanted to try and keep this one a little bit more well sealed than that side, which already has two open sides in it. Sorry I haven't been able to get a whole lot of shots of what's going on up here. It is still, without the sheet metal on it, it is still pretty wiggly all the way around, and so I have a hard enough time climbing up here on myself and being secure, let alone trying to get a camera up here so that you guys can watch me. But hopefully you've been able to see enough from the ground for what I've been doing. But yeah, here's what the roof looks like. The last steps that we have are to put 2x6s all the way up on this wall right here, put a door up, but I'll do that in a separate video because it's kind of an interesting process. And then to go ahead and throw sheet metal across this entire thing and throw the gutter up. So in the next couple, I'm gonna go through and I'm basically gonna get you guys a time lapse of me throwing all the sheet metal up here, and then we'll go through and talk through it a little bit more at the end. So I'll see you guys in just a second. Alrighty, and there's the gutter system. I do apologize because my time lapse totally died as I was putting up the primary portion of the gutters up here, so you got to see none of that. But I used the vinyl type 5-inch K-type, vinyl 5-inch K-type, gutters, and they were actually much easier than I expected to. At the joints over here, I've put up some aluminum gutters in the past, and they were kind of a pain to get joined and put the gutter sealant in and get everything together nicely. These ones, you can barely see it in the video, but basically you've got a snap seal right there, and so they've got some foam gaskets on the inside that snap both of them together, and then you just put some of the hidden gutter hangers all the way through it, and make sure there's, I think it was a 1/2 inch of drop for every 10 feet, so I made sure that there was about a 1/2 inch all the way across there. And then on the other side over here, there's 2 different ways that you can do the downspout connector. One is you just run the gutter straight through it and then drill a couple of holes or a big hole on the inside of that. I just drilled a bunch of holes on the inside because then it also works as a leaf strainer, and that was one of the things they recommended. And it was easier than trying to cut 2 separate segments that I'm going to put here and put here. So that guy sits nice and flush in there, and then I ran the gutter all the way down here in a little tiny outspout. But now we should get a lot less splatter. It's been about a week since I've been able to work on this, and yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a whole bunch of splatter all over the bottom of these panels right here because the rain was just coming right off the roof, hitting the ground and splattering mud up on the side. So now we should be good to go there. Last thing that I need to do is put up the clear paneling, or not clear paneling, but the white paneling all the way up and around the perimeter here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that on time lapse, but as of right now, I am waiting for them to come in. So it'll be a couple days for me and about 2 seconds for you. I'll go ahead and time lapse myself putting that up. And with those guys up, this looks way better than I was expecting it to. Originally, we were going to be going with clear all the way around, but when I talked to the supplier that I get all of this from, he said normally they go with an 85% translucent, which has a normal whitish color. But you can see how we carry it all the way around here and then onto the open side. Yeah, I'm really happy the way that turned out right there. Now, one of the things you'll notice if you're looking closely is there's a couple of spots like this where the trim sticks out or where the wall panels came out a little bit too far, and that's okay because we have these corner pieces that we're about to be putting up, and so those will go bottom to top all the way across, which will hide any of those gaps and give it a real nice finished look. So the next time lapse is going to be my dad and I going through and basically cutting all of these to size all the way around to cover those up. So to give you guys a quick glimpse of how I did these corners, I kind of developed a process as we went all the way through. First thing that I did was I measured the longest portion top to bottom that we were going to need so that I could at least roughly fit it in there. For the portion of it that was going to be on the pitch side, like on mine I've got a 212 pitch on my roof, and so over the 6 inches here I needed to drop it 1 inch from the tallest portion there and then cut it flat on the far side. Then I would look for places where this interfered. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. There it is. But you can see where the rafter came into it and basically measure what I needed to cut out there. And then here at the bottom, if I interfered with anything like one of the concrete bases, I would notch it out there. But I would go through kind of in that order all the way through, getting it the coarsest and then slowly fine tuning it until it fit nicely all the way through. And that's how I did all of them all the way around. Well, everybody, thanks for joining me today on this episode. I really appreciate you sticking around this long. I hope that throughout the course of this process, you picked up a couple of helpful tips if you're going to try and make one of your own, or you just enjoyed the process as I went through and built the barn. I'm honestly super excited with how this came out. Came out much better than I expected it to. I had to do a lot less finagling than I thought I would have to, especially at the very beginning, going from getting the building square and making sure that all the holes and poles and concrete posts and pillars were all in the right spot. That really made a big difference in making sure that everything lined up nicely in the end. So if you're in the process of building one and you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section down below. Love to hear from you guys. Love to see what you're doing, and if there's any way that I can help, I'd love to see if I can help you. Also, with the full disclaimer that I am not an expert. This is literally the first barn that I've ever built in my entire life, so by no means am I an expert, but I did learn a few things across the time in doing this particular build, and I had a lot of fun with it. So thank you guys again for sticking around. I really appreciate it. If you like the kind of content we have here at Northwest Craftsman, love to get a thumbs up on this video, and if you would like to subscribe to the channel so that you can see the rest of our videos and see when new videos are coming out, I would also really appreciate that. So thank you guys. You guys are the community that makes this channel go, and you guys are the reason why I do this, so I do appreciate having you guys around. Anyways, have a great time. Thank you guys for watching. Go build something awesome.